Well, Madam Sophie Grégoire Trudeau has spent years advocating for gender equality, from celebrating the triumphs of women and girls to inspiring the next generation of big thinkers.
And for the last 16 days, she has been leading the charge to end gender-based violence. And now, in an English television exclusive, she joins us now from her home in Ottawa. Sophie, how are you? And how is the family?
Yes, you call me Sophie. No, madame.
I won't go so far as saying Soph. We're not there yet, but Sophie will do for now.
But how crazy Sophie G in the house, but nobody knows this. Now I know.
Okay, all right. It's going to be hard not to say it now. But how is the family? How are you? How's the family?
Oh, we're doing so well. I mean, you know, as usual, getting ready for school in the morning, and the chaotic rush of every morning in most families, I guess. But everybody's doing well. We're healthy, and we're just so lucky, because this is not the case for so many people out there. So we're just so lucky.
Well, as we know, this Christmas, this holiday is going to be different than any other year. And we also know that you're somebody who really looks for the positive in every situation. So just exactly how are you, the Prime Minister, and the family? How are you planning on spending the holidays this year?
Well, you know, close-knit family. I'm going to try to get the kids outside, respecting social distancing, because they drive us crazy when they stay inside all day. I think a lot of parents can relate to that. So, you know, board games, you know, sliding, just going for walks. I'm going to try to control screen time, which is tough during the holidays. And, you know, baking together, spending some time together, and doing FaceTime with family, you know, abroad or close family in Montreal, trying to keep things real and, you know, cuddles as much as possible, always.
Oh, you bet. Now, we're also asking Canadians about their favorite holiday memories, because I think this is also going to be a year where we're looking back at great memories more than ever. So what would yours be? What's your favorite holiday memory?
Wow. It's definitely, I've spent holidays here and there, you know, not at home. And for me, the snow being at home is everything. I would say when I had the babies and everybody was around, and, you know, it takes a village, right? And everybody knows that, especially in hard times, you need support. And this is what we're going to talk about as well. But I would say, you know, just being at home with friends and family, and lots of things going around, lots of kids running around, just joyful and being privileged and being lucky. It just means everything.
All right, you mentioned support, and it's always been important to you to create inspiring and real conversations about change. And we invited you on this morning because we want to talk about the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. It's a campaign that ends today. But Sophie, tell us why you got involved and why this conversation, why it's so important.
Well, I got involved because I've been involved for years, trying to have honest, you know, sometimes uncomfortable situation when it comes to taboo or stigma, which surrounds domestic abuse, violence, inequality. And right now we are talking about, you know, gender-based violence, because there's thousands and thousands of Canadian women and children, mostly men suffer as well. But when it comes to gender-based violence, there's so many women and kids being afflicted. And right now, during this pandemic, because we're isolated and we're in our own homes, their capacity to break the cycle of violence and to get out is even more serious and more difficult. And in the past 16 days, I've spoken to survivors, to men who also understand that as a society, we need to have a serious conversation on, do we understand our emotions? And are we raising our boys and girls to understand their own anger, their own sadness, their own anxiety, and to not have to revert to violence in order to express and dominate? And the whole notion of masculinity is such a narrow one, same for femininity, but there's so much work to be done, because right now we're in a crisis. And I really want to tell people, if you're listening now and you're suffering, or if you know anybody who's suffering, know that there are allies along the way. You're never alone. It's always possible to get out of a cycle of violence, even if it's very difficult. Sheltersafe.ca. There's also the women's website, on the Status of Women website, where they will direct you to different crisis lines where you can get help. But just know that you're never alone. We're thinking about you. It's difficult, but you can get out of it, and there's help along the way. People have to know this. And obviously, all the frontline workers and all the people who work in shelters and in crisis centers, we The federal government has been trying to send, $100 million since May, and they need help. So we need to thank them and to make sure that we all collaborate in our own homes, in our own schools, on our own streets, in our own institutions to make sure that we talk about the real stuff and see where our flaws are as individuals and as a society.
Sophie, you mentioned that women in particular were extremely vulnerable, particularly during this pandemic, because you just couldn't leave your home in some instances. What can Canadians do? You're touching upon it right now, but what can we all do to really help and go beyond this campaign?
That's a great question, because sometimes people say, yeah, but you have a voice, people are listening. What do I do if nobody's listening? So here we go. When it comes to big systemic change, think small. Think of the little actions you can take every day. So if you're a boy or a man and you hear sexist jokes, or you see a degrading situation when it comes to your sister or your friend or your schoolmate, whoever, call people out and say, this is not okay. There's so much going on. And, as youth and as adults as well, we become what we consume. So we've got to be very careful at what we bring our attention to, because where we bring our attention, we become that. And I think that people can make, consumer choices. They can help out by volunteering. Sometimes it's just even 15 minutes a week or whatever you have to be able to make a difference. Also donating to, at Christmas, if you're looking for a creative gift, I think our creativity should go to helping out people, because they're in need. And this is happening in our own country: systemic violence, systemic racism. And during Christmas, we're celebrating, obviously, the spirit of the holidays, but in a quite different year, in a quite different way. And we have to unite through all of this. And it's happening in our backyards, in our neighbors' homes, and sometimes in our own homes. So we got to be truthful about it.
You mentioned being united. You also mentioned a second ago, and I thought it was a very powerful statement, a very powerful message, that you are not alone. So how can women and any other Canadians living with gender-based violence, Sophie, how can they find help?
All right. So to find help, first of all, I would always encourage everybody to see in your own community what is the closest center. There's also crisis lines on the Status of Women website. Sheltersafe.ca will direct you to the closest center near you, and they have all the resources. And you know what? Sometimes that first step is the most difficult, but you'll see that when you take that first step, things will open up, and you'll meet allies along the way who are there to help you, and we are there to help you, and we care. You're never alone, and suffering in silence is not something that should happen to anybody.
For more information on this great cause, visit sheltersafe.ca. Madame Sophie Grégoire. Sorry.
You said
Madame. No, Madame.
Sorry. Sophie G.
Sophie G.
Or Soph. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.
Be well, everybody. Happy holidays. Take care of yourselves.